Welcome to Beyond Sunday, the podcast that doesn't happen on Sunday, it happens beyond Sunday. I am your guest host, Peter Bay, as Dina is out with the flu. Or where is she? Does anyone know?
I think she's getting training in Lincoln.
Oh, she's getting training.
Team.
Well,
they might all have the flu.
At first, I thought Dina's voice got a lot lower all of a sudden. That was a little concerning.
Get better soon, Dina. We miss you. And with me today, I have two illustrious guesses. Guestesses. And go ahead and introduce yourself.
Go ahead, bud. You go first.
I'm Chad Kelly. I am the Director of Student Ministries here at our Millard campus.
Wait a second. Something has changed.
What?
You're the Director of Student Ministries.
So I used to be the student ministry intern. And as of a couple weeks ago or whenever that happened, I'm now the Director of Student Ministry.
Yeah, it was a lot of preparation, work, and prayer that moved you from one thing to the other. So congratulations, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So he's colloquized.
He is.
What does that mean, Seth?
Well, he did a circle. Yeah, he put on the sacred undergarments. And No.
Yeah.
Dude, come on. You can't talk about that.
Well, I am talking about a different religion altogether.
Yeah, you're describing Mormonism.
No, he has not transitioned to a different theology. Nope.
That's great.
In fact, he was actually certified that he is competent, like he understands the teachings of the scriptures and the leadership of Christ well enough where our entire church body endorses that he can be a representative as a director of Christian education, as a director of student ministries, representing our church body, but also faithfully teaching the scriptures in our church here and leading that with all of our students.
And so, Chad, congratulations on being colloquized. How stressful was it?
Oh, it was kind of crazy. So yeah, it was an hour and a half Zoom interview where they just grilled me with all sorts of questions, and I prepared a list of answers prior, and they just drilled me on holes in my arguments for an hour and a half.
What?
And the first question they asked was like, all right, define the Trinity, as if you were talking to a student.
Without being a heretic.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
So I brought in like the Lutheran satire video of modalism, partialism, all the fun things.
Which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, for those who are listening,
have you not
great.
seen that? Oh, it's good.
I don't think I have.
So it's two Irish twins that are animated.
Oh, I have seen those Irish twins.
Yeah. They do one on the Trinity and heresies within that. It was with Saint Nick, right? Or no, Saint Patrick.
Yep.
It was Saint Patrick. Because they go, Patrick. That's modalism, Patrick.
I'll have to check it out.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
I really hope that you did that impersonation during your colloquy interview.
I did not. Yeah, I thought that'd be or distasteful, but whatever.
But what we did to be couth is before he sat down to do his Zoom video interview, we took a bunch of very impressive books and we put them right behind him to imply that like he read every single, and he probably has read most of them, but like there were just like tomes of books piled up behind him just so like
Brilliant.
They would get this idea.
Book of Concord, Augsburg Confession. What else?
Bondage of the Will. Yeah, well, and so Seth is letting me borrow that book right now as I'm slowly getting through it.
Yeah.
And I referred to it in my interview. And they're at the end, they're like, wow, well, we can see you're working through some texts and you're still
behind you.
furthering your education. Like, which it's been great to learn about.
Yeah.
But so it helped me that, hey, A, he let me borrow it, and B, I got to utilize it in the interview.
Mm-hmm. All right. So if I ever have to do an interview like this for S&P, I shouldn't have my like action figures up behind me.
No, do that, but just have other very impressive books.
Yeah,
have Ultimate Warrior on top of the impressive books.
It's got to be a myriad of skills they can see behind you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Well, today is National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day.
What?
Ooh.
And did you know that the chocolate chip cookie was an accidental invention?
Seriously?
Really?
It sure was.
You know what I do know?
Tell me.
You knew that it was Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, and I see 0 chocolate chip cookies here.
I don't see any either.
Yeah, well, good point.
And you withheld them from our listeners.
That's right.
All right. But you know what I don't want to withhold from our listeners?
What's that?
The story of the accidental finding of the chocolate chip cookie.
Me neither. Because I just looked this up 3 minutes ago.
Expert status.
Yes. And so this woman, who will go nameless, she has a name. I don't remember it.
Okay. Mrs. Tollhouse?
She was crushing the cookie making back then. And she was making these butter drop cookies, but she ran out of her baker's chocolate. And so she's like, I'll just chop up some semi-sweet, throw it in there. It'll work fine. But the difference is this.
Interesting.
Baker's chocolate goes into the dough, melds in.
Yeah.
Whereas semi-sweet does not, as we all know, because we eat chocolate chip cookies all the time now. And the chocolate remains in gooey little
morsels.
Pockets.
Tidbits.
Morsels.
You aim your bite based on the chip quantity and distribution.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Now, here's a question. If you think it's a chocolate chip cookie and it's oatmeal raisin, what do you do?
Oh, I eat that. That's my favorite.
That's your favorite.
Well, it's up there. Top molasses chewy cookies. Those are peak for me. And then after that,
You're dissing chocolate
Oatmeal.
chip cookies on their day.
no, I'm just saying.
That's what it sounded
I
like.
have a priority list here: molasses, oatmeal raisin.
That's
and then
above chocolate chip?
Yes.
Oatmeal raisin? So you're
100%.
happy when you mistakenly grab a chocolate chip, but it's actually an oatmeal raisin.
Yes.
How about you, Chad?
I mean, I'm a little disappointed, but then it's like, I mean, it's with
Wait,
the
you're disappointed in me for liking
no, I'm
oatmeal raisin?
disappointed in the
Or
bite
you're
that I get when I get a raisin instead of a chocolate chip. But then it's like, it's in the cookie trays and that's what's left. You're like, oh, yes, there's chocolate chip cookies left. Take a bite. And you get the chewy, mushy raisin.
That's the best.
That is one of the few times I throw a dessert against a wall. It feels like deception.
Can you throw it towards me next time? I would
Absolutely.
eat it.
I enjoy the oatmeal part of the cookie. I don't quite enjoy the raisin part of the cookie. So we need to try an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie.
Oh, yeah,
I bet
I'm
that
down.
would be
Isn't that
quite
what
good.
Monster is? Is like just a bunch of stuff in
Oh,
oatmeal?
probably. Yeah. Yeah. Well, funny story. There's a student in our student ministry. She like bakes cookies, like basically crumble cookie styles for just a ton of them.
Who's this?
Claudia Kirkbaum?
Well, I need to meet this gal.
Oh,
That
she
sounds awesome.
is awesome. But she told me the other day that she can make like monster cookies. She can make fancy cookies, but she can't do a chocolate chip. She cannot do a chocolate chip cookie.
Well,
Yeah.
she probably could, but not up to her liking.
Right. Well, yeah, but it's like crazy.
What's her last name again?
Kirkbaum,
Craig Baum.
All right. What
That's a cool
relationship
last
is
name.
this to the Olivia that I know?
the sister.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
figured.
wow.
the sister
There
of
you
the
go.
Olivia Kirkbaum, the Claudia Kirkbaum.
All right.
Craig
Well, here,
Baum.
I can make a transition
Let's hear it.
because this Sunday, Pastor Greg was talking about Pokemon, but he was talking about Esther. And he said to everybody, if you say this one specific sentence,
Yes.
your campus director will give you a Pokemon card.
Yep.
At that very moment, since I was sitting in front, which is our student takeover area, I was sitting right next to Josh, Olivia leans over across four different people and she goes, I was chosen before I was seen. Where's my Pokemon card? I was like, later. But
Respect.
anyways,
Yeah.
that brings us to Esther for today.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned Pokemon as well. So before we get into Esther, tell me about your Pokemon experiences.
All right, I'll let you go, Chad, because
Yeah.
this might be a little bit more in your area.
It's actually not. I've been quite lacking in my Pokemon experience. The only Pokemon experience I've never owned a card. The only experience is that we were sitting in line when I was younger with a friend, and he brought all of his Pokemon cards. He had his book, and he was flipping through the pages, and I was like, "This is a world that I have nothing to know about."
Wow.
And so I've never had a Pokemon card.
Wow. So I have a completely different experience than Chad.
Seth
do
is the
tell.
expert, I imagine.
I have probably purchased hundreds of Pokemon cards.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Pokemon shirt, but I'm not really a fan of Pokemon. My children are. So like birthdays, they're like, I want Pokemon cards. But now they're teenagers, so they're like, hey, Dad, can I have Pokemon cards? They bought me a Pokemon shirt for Christmas one year. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it, but I wear it all over because, hey, it's a really comfortable shirt.
It's from the boys.
Yep. And they've watched the cartoons, they've watched the movies.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll even watch these videos of people like opening them up the packages to show if like I spent $3,000 on this one package of 10 cards. Watch me open it because there might be a blah 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 Gyarados.
then there's
or
one
something.
worth like $70, and that's all you get.
Yeah, or there's one and that like the pack is worthless.
Oh yeah.
But they'll watch some of those. So I have like an insider knowledge of Pokemon, but not by choice, I think is the way that I'll put that. So like I don't have any of the cards myself. I just know the names of the characters by osmosis of being in the same room
Right,
where my kids
right.
are watching it. But that's about it for me. How about you?
Yeah. I think Pokemon's phenomenal. Growing up, I couldn't afford Pokemon cards, and I found two, or I was given two, like spares or something like that. My 8th grade teacher, Mr. L, he knew that I didn't love Pokemon with all my heart, and he was sick of seeing Pokemon cards in the classroom.
Did he ban them?
No, he brought me up and he made an example, and he said, "Let me see what you have here." And he said, "Class, pay attention." And I gave him my Pokemon cards, and he tore them in half.
What?
The two cards I had. And I just laughed. I was like, because that was just crazy. And he threw them in
just
the
used
trash.
you.
Yeah, he just used me because
Wow.
he knew I didn't really care that much. But I am so impressed by the staying power of Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
This is its 30th anniversary.
It's unbelievable. And It is the largest franchise of any entertainment franchise bigger than WWE, Harry Potter,
No way.
Star Wars. It has grossed over $147 billion.
But just think about it. One of the biggest industries that generates revenue right now, it's not movies. It's not even like TikTok. It's not even YouTube. It's video games. And so it's got the corner on video games, card games, collectibles, merchandising.
Yeah, right. We were referring to the card games, but the video games is crazy. Yep. I've also not ever really messed with it at all, but the amount or Pokemon Go, I have played Pokemon Go.
Niantic allowed them to get into the app space with Pokemon Go. It became a cultural phenom. There were people that walked into traffic because they're paying more attention to Pokemon Go on their phone than they did to the real world. There was even a story, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but like some dude apparently was trying to catch some kind of Pokemon and walked off a cliff. Because like he just was so enamored with catching them all that he apparently walked off a cliff. I don't know if that's true, if he lived, if he died, whatever.
And he wasn't like saved by Pikachu or something.
No.
Charizard flew him up.
Charizard. I love all the names of the Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Squirtle,
Mewtwo,
Snubbles.
Yeah,
they're just great. But this Pokemon is the first game in our Game On series, and it launched us into Esther. And we were introduced to Esther and found out that we don't know who Esther's mom and dad are. Mm-hmm. And that she's just living with like cousin / Uncle Mordecai. I've always thought he was uncle, but the Bible tells cousin, so I'm going to believe it. But I've always seen Mordecai as like, he's older, would be my guess, or at least he's in a higher position. But otherwise, Esther is completely orphaned. And so in this early text with Esther, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, to parallel to the story of Pokemon, like you're dropped in this wilderness with almost nothing to your name. And Esther's here is an orphan with, I imagine, almost nothing to her name. Right. And it builds the potential for a gospel presentation beautifully. We'll see and we'll walk to in a little bit, but from rags to riches, right? And we're all brought from rags to riches through our sin, through the power of the Holy Spirit, the gospel, the redeeming grace that Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead to save us from everything. And that we can live not as an orphan anymore, but as an adopted, loved child of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to Esther, I think we don't know a lot about who her mom and dad were, but we have a pretty good idea why they weren't in the picture. And that's one thing that I think it's good to know about Esther, just to go into a little bit of a backstory about what's happened to God's people to that point. And that is the people of Israel had been incredibly wicked. And so it splits into two kingdoms. The northern kingdom gets like ravaged by a totally different empire. The Assyrian Empire comes in. They take away everybody in the north, leaving, just the south kingdom, which, we have like Jerusalem and Judea and some of those other areas in it. Well, the Assyrians try to take over the southern kingdom as well, but they're not successful. But there is another group that comes in, the Babylonians, and they begin to take away sections of the kingdom because they overcome the kingdom. So again, this is a outside group, the Babylonians, with Nebuchadnezzar. So like for all those VeggieTales fans, he's the giant pickle or a giant cucumber.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rack, Shack, and Benny.
There you go. So Nebuchadnezzar comes in and he takes 3 different waves of people out of Israel, like completely conquering that whole leftover territory. And he actually just picks them up, plops them into his area, into his country. And so like you've got a lot of parents murdered during this exile time. So first wave, anybody who rebels against King Nebuchadnezzar and wants to stay in Israel, they're going to get murdered. And so first wave goes. And generally speaking, like if you want to like put a character in some of these waves, you're talking Daniel. Daniel gets taken in the first wave and he gets removed to Babylon. A bunch of people know Daniel and the Lion's Den and stuff like that. Second wave comes in, destroys more of that southern kingdom and takes characters like Ezekiel away in that second wave. Mm-hmm. So like now 2/3 of the people have been removed from that southern kingdom of Israel. And again, the whole northern kingdom's gone already. You got 1/3 of people who are left. They come in, they sack Jerusalem, they destroy the temple, and they take the last third of people. So you have a lot of resistance against Babylon. So you have a lot of parents, cousins, and they're going to be murdered because they're stepping up against Nebuchadnezzar and his people. And this is like the context of why we find Esther not in Israel. We find Esther in a totally different country, and we find Esther actually has a different name when she gets there. She's known in two different ways by two different circles, and like Mordecai is like one of the only people she has from her family left, because we can only surmise like what happened to the rest of her family. So you're right. We start out and Esther is Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. Esther is Harry Potter at the Dursleys' home. Like those are characters that are somewhat based, even if they don't know it, are very much based off of a character like Esther, who has an identity, but it's kind of washed and forgotten by the time the story starts.
Well, thank you for that context. And my guess is Mordecai is probably similar.
Yeah.
And so I don't know enough of either. Have either of you experienced loss of family?
No, not nearly to the degree of some families.
So I would say this, like, yeah, I've lost, grandmas and grandpas and such, and I've lost uncles. My godfather, he died when I was really young, and it was a big part of my life. But one thing that you don't really account for when you serve a church is how close you get to people, and how many of them pass away, and how close you get to their families, and how you grieve your own loss of that person. So you lose a lot when you're in ministry. But the great blessing of the gospel is for most of the families that we're connected with, we're connected because of our faith in Jesus. And it redefines what it means like when you do lose somebody, but it also redefines who you can connect with in a community after you have lost everybody, like Esther and Mordecai. How about you?
Yeah. In my family, I'm very fortunate to have grandparents for sure. Growing up, I've had a handful of friends who have passed. Some that I wasn't terribly close with, but I remember in college was a guy named Bobby Mason. And my freshman year of college, we played a ton of basketball. Everyone wanted to play. Sophomore year, it was okay. By my junior year, the runs were down, and there's just not many people were playing open gym. But so Bobby and I played one-on-one all the time. And I was gone on choir tour. And so Bobby was in the gym just shooting by himself. He has heart failure. And this is a guy who ran like a half marathon off of a dare and just did it well. And so for him to have heart failure was crazy, and there was no one there. And so he died. And I remembered just like having that survivor's guilt of like, I should have been there. And the reality was, no, I was wherever I was on choir tour. But the loss of people that you love, it just stings for so long, and it never gets filled. And so I wonder for Esther. I mean, not only is she in a foreign land, but she's in a foreign land where either they or the people prior to or whatever have murdered her family. And now God's calling her into the possibility of marrying or joining in on the head of the murder spear.
Yeah. And whether they were murdered or not, that part we don't know.
Yeah.
They could have died of natural causes, but what's the most likely scenario with the way that families were treated at that time?
Right.
Well, yeah, you're right. Like, how does that feel to know what happened to the previous queen? So Queen Vashti was like carted out in front of the king and basically told, well, just do what I want you to do, and I don't care about you at all. And she said no. And so she was removed. And that's where Esther gets into this part of the story of actually getting introduced to the king.
Yeah. And Vashti, without getting too graphic here, was this the king requesting her to do lewd things for his guests?
All right. So we got Esther chapter 1 here. And the king requests her presence. He was merry with wine. and they requested that Queen Vashti be brought before the king with her royal crown in order to show the peoples and the princes her beauty, for she was lovely to look at. So basically to show her off.
Yeah.
And how do you think that would feel if I called you up on stage during worship? I was like, I want to show off look at my friend Peter's biceps.
I think it's different. I would be so happy to do that. That's different. But if you're like, Melinda, or if I were like Carissa come up, that would not be a good.
It wouldn't
good
be
day.
honoring.
No,
and that is not what's happening here, which is why she refuses so vehemently. I mean, yeah. So this is not like a positive experience for Vashti, and she is removed, and you can only read into, like what that would mean. And then Esther has a different opportunity, but she knows what's been going on, and she knows what fate could belie her if, say, she wins this beauty pageant of a charade. Like, that doesn't actually mean she gets a W here. Like, this just means that she's jumped from the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that it's worth going into, though, because I think a lot of times when people think of Queen Esther, they're like, oh, rags to riches. She has this opportunity to go from like a nobody to a somebody. But becoming a somebody had its weight too. It might have been better to be a nobody.
Well, even in the somebody part of the story, if she doesn't hold that somebody part of the story in a very particular way, which Greg is going to develop a little bit later, and as the sermon series goes, if she doesn't follow the steps that need to be stepped, and that is like, there's an approach that she has to make even as the queen to the king, if he has not invited her to speak to him, that if she speaks out of turn, he had every right to be able to kill her even after she was the queen. So I mean, just because she becomes the queen does not necessarily mean this is always a good thing for her.
Okay, so Queen Esther, prior to Queen Esther, she's Hadassah, and she's a kid whose family's dead, has her cousin Mordecai, and that's about it. She's just doing her thing. And then people will talk, but then God provides. But I wonder also, was God not providing originally? So when we are in tough times, Chad, it's easier to see God's providence when the sun comes up.
Oh yeah.
How can we see God's providence in the other times?
Yeah, we're talking on this about at student nights tomorrow. The idea of joy in the wilderness, of Paul writing Philippians while being in prison. That there's something in our hearts, which is logical, that inherently makes us want to subside to the circumstances that are around us. And I imagine for Esther, it was an opportunity to say, like, yeah, my parents are dead, my family's dead, I'm in this spot, and I don't know what to do, and to just sit in that. But then on the flip side, you think of how can you reframe a situation, and with Jesus, we get to reframe every situation. That the darkness and the power of the enemy doesn't have power over us anymore in the same way. And so I wonder for Esther how she could have reframed what she was going through, and even in the idea of like, and we can guess that maybe her parents died for trying to stand up against something, or if not that, she had the stories and the people before her that did stand up and ended up getting killed because of it, or stood up and didn't get killed. But I wonder if in the darkness of the oppression that she had the opportunity to say, I'm going to be like them. I'm going to stand up like the people before me did. And I'm going to live a different life than, because I bet her friends and family beyond those that have passed away were not in the best frame of mind and the best space to approach something like that. So I wonder what she clung to allow her to take steps that she did.
Yeah, and for the vast majority of people around, the idea was probably more so to stay hidden.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder, Pastor Greg I was convicted, he talked about, are there areas of life where your faith is hidden? Mm-hmm. When he talked about that, didn't anything stick out to you guys, or either with you or scenarios that came to mind?
Well, I think it's a doctrinal thing that our church, makes a really big difference out of, that you're, as a whole person right now in a fallen world, you're probably not the person that people see, because you're not just the saint that you want other people to see. And you're also, for other people who dwell on the other side of things, who just highlight how sinful they are and how terrible they are. You're both. And I think that's like more of a doctrinal way to look at it. But I think if we think about how we define ourselves based off of what we say about ourselves, so like, I'm super awesome, or I'm a reject. Neither one of those actually describes who you are. And what I find is that in my life, I'm far less prone to talk about how awesome I am. And I am far more prone to think repetitively how terrible of a person I am and how much of a failure I am. And rather than looking at like the blessings that the Lord has given me, I am far more likely to ruminate in my head and my heart over how I've screwed things up so royally and how broken I am. And so when Greg talked about that, I didn't think of it as, what is this hidden sin thing that maybe I have that no one else can see? I thought about it more of like, what is this hidden identity that I've clung to for so long that it's become a part of who I am inside of like in my heart and in my head? And why would I cling to that? Like, what is it that provides for me? And it provides for me nothing. And yet I still cling to it. So that's what I reacted to.
Yeah, it's interesting how people can feel oddly comfortable or maybe just stuck in their pit of shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chad, what came to mind for you?
Maybe I'll go along the same train of thought. I definitely can be in that too shameful to deserve the love of Jesus. But then at different times, I ping pong to the opposite extreme of like, oh, I'm too good where I don't need God. And I think all of us naturally lean towards one, but in different seasons go between both. And to keep on that same train of thought, that how are you representing Jesus and how are you believing that you were made for such a time as this? And I'd wonder with Esther, where did she lean? Did she lean like, oh, I'm the queen? Like, do I really need to stoop down almost to that level to do that? Or I'm not good enough. I can't do that because I don't have what it takes.
Yeah. And in Esther's narrative, she had to conceal who she was as a Jew very strongly for a little bit. And I wondered with Greg's question, are there times in my life when I conceal who I am as a Christian? Mm-hmm. And I don't show that. And as I examined that, I did think of some like, so I play basketball 3 mornings a week, 5:30 a.m. at the JCC.
Nice.
Yes, the Jewish Community Center. So shout out Queen Esther. But when you're playing basketball with a bunch of men, even though you may see them 3 days a week, I don't know their last names.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if their first name is their legal first name or if that's just what I call them.
Big dog.
Right. Right. So very few of them I even know anything beyond their basketball skill, what they do for a living, any of that. Now, I ask a lot of questions and I get to know some of the people. And like one of the guys, Ryan, phenomenal dude, strong Christian guy, he made a joke last week. It didn't land. Everyone made fun of him. And it was a little off color for him. Not lewd, but like just a little off color. And so he came in today and very seriously was like, hey man, just because you were there, I felt convicted about the joke I said, and I'm going to try to be better. And if you hear me do stuff like that, call me out. And that was one, so honoring that he would say that, but also convicting for me as well, because that is like 2 of my 4 people are guys at the basketball gym. And I'm like, and that is a spot where I rarely will speak about my faith. I do try to live it up by not scream cussing and
Dennis Rodman elbow somebody.
acting like a jerk on the court.
My name is Meta World Peace, Bay.
That did make me wonder, what are the areas of my life where I'm more shy or even concealing about my faith?
Oh, yeah.
And any of those stick out to you too?
Well, it's easy as a Christian to have different personas. And this was me in high school. Like I had my church persona, I had my school persona, I had my sports persona, and each person that I had was a little bit different, acted a little bit different, said words that the other one wouldn't have said. And praise be to Jesus, I'm not at that extreme anymore, but there's still that a little bit. And even in the hard part that I'm at of like in church work, of I have my work persona, and then I go home, and you'd expect me to be that loving, outgoing person to my neighbors, except I like know 2 of their names, maybe. I know the people above me because I ask their dog to be quiet every once in a while. But aside from that, like I'm not loving my neighbor. I know the call to love your neighbor isn't just physically your neighbors, but they're also my neighbors. And so that's where I would feel convicted of, am I living it in my whole world, or am I being my church work persona and then going home and just being Chad? But like you said, the conviction of like, how do those become synonymous, be the same?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest moves in spiritual maturity is when you try to take all of those personalities and you start to kind of whittle away the excess performance pieces.
Yeah.
And you start to live more like the collection of all of those pieces combined that represent the best.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's easier to fall back into the old habits and the old ways to talk. And this is not me coming from a point of, and I am in that position right now. This is coming from me for a position of, that's where I aspire to be still.
Yeah.
But I think it's easier to slide into roles with people because it's easier and more palatable to try to meet their expectations of who you think they want you to be than who you really are, because you're scared they're going to reject you for who you really are. And I think rejection and failure and fear, that defines our identity so much, and it shouldn't, because we should not have to worry about fear. The scriptures say perfect love casts out fear. And I think part of that perfect love casting out fear is casting out all of these shadows of who you project yourself to be, but you really aren't those people. And I think if people actually got to see who you really are, we're afraid that they wouldn't like us. I actually think that people would like us more if we actually were who we were supposed to be. And you actually see that, like in the character of Esther, she's given more respect and more honor the further along she goes, and the more and more of Hadassah you see with Queen Esther, like part and parcel together, the more influence she has, the more obedience she has, the more faith she has, the more courage she illustrates, is when she brings both of those pieces of her identity together.
So Hadassah, the Jewish name of Queen Esther, she was seen by God before she ever even existed, but by the large masses, not at all. Pastor Greg talked about how we were chosen before we were seen. And in your life, how does that impact you, that knowledge that God has chosen you even before you were seen?
I'm going to throw it back to you, Peter.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we just took elongated turns, and I don't want people to think that like we're hogging the entire podcast.
No, people won't think that. Yeah, Chad, you mentioned something earlier that stood out to me, because I was a punk all through high school. Not saying that you were, but I was.
I'm not saying I wasn't.
I definitely was. And I did well, and I got along with my teachers, and it was great. I loved high school. I loved college. But I've mentioned this before. I had a buddy in college who called me out and said, "You're a jerk." And that really helped me to see my behavior and how it mattered. Now, even at that point, God knew that he was like, this jerk, I'm gonna put him in church work. And I was so unkind.
I put the jerk in church work.
He brings the jerk back to church work. No, but it's really cool to see how God claims us as his children and qualifies us through Christ. And it is not our performance or earning that allows us to make an impact. Christ has done it. And because of that, I get to. And even when I don't, it doesn't change the way he sees me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I'd say that's part of my story for sure, is from a punk and kind of a jerky kid who just do anything to make people laugh. And now, like, just really trying to tenderize, to not be offensive, but also because jerks have less impact for God's kingdom. And so, but God knew that, and he knew the work that he was going to do way before it ever happened.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, how'd you get from that to being the guy that people apologize to when they take a step out of line, not in their walk with Christ? Like, what was that? What was that shift? What was that like?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that's the fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
So I believe that the fruit of the Spirit is some of the gnarliest stuff that you can ever grow in your life. We sing funny little songs about it. The fruit of the Spirit is love, and it's like, so I think it's often seen as a fun preschool curriculum, but it is actually like, it almost always comes from hardship and from failure and the humility of realizing that I don't have what it takes, but through Christ, I am called. I'm still God's child.
Yeah.
And that fruit of the Spirit, then, of having joy when you could be frustrated, or having patience when you should be irritated. People see that and say, I want what they're having because I'm just so irritated right now.
Yeah.
And I think the Holy Spirit growing that in me over years, just like bashing it over my head.
Yeah.
I think is what's led to that. And it is just that constant reforming and reshaping that we endure, and because Christ first endured. So, and the big word is sanctification. And that's that never stops.
Right.
So, and I don't know that I have the verbiage to break that down in an easy way. How would you describe sanctification?
Oh, just to be set apart, to be made holy.
Okay.
And what I love about what you just relayed, especially with the fruits of the Spirit, is exactly that process. So if the fruit of the Spirit is love, you're going to be in positions where a bunch of people really hate you. And love is not a response to another love. It's not like, oh, you love me, so I'll love you. Love, as we see it in the scriptures, is a response to people that hate us and oppose us. And despite that, we still love them. Joy, you sit in deep grief. Somebody dies, and what do you do with that? Well, the Lord is going to give you something, and that thing is joy. But you're going to go through the grief part to experience that joy is more than just happiness. Happiness is fleeting. You can spend your whole life chasing after it, but the moment that you have it for a second is the moment it goes away, and you recalibrate and you begin to pursue it again. Joy is able to meet you in the worst parts of your life, and you have it, and it's not something you continue to chase. Peace. That's kind of obvious. Like, how many situations do you get placed into that test your peace? But I think that one of the hardest ones to pray for, that people pray for flippantly, is patience, because God will answer that prayer almost every time. And he'll answer it by putting you in situations that are going to test your patience limits. And in all likelihood, he's not going to put you in this test, but you're going to fail having patience with people. And so you're going to realize how patience is a gift, and it is a fruit, not something that you've cultivated for yourself. So you can go through each one of those fruits of the Spirit that you were talking about, and there is a discipleship process. And so high school, college, you've shared those stories before, that those were meaningful processes where the Lord is shaping you from the person who you were to the person that you're becoming. And here's what I think is cool about that. And it goes back to you were chosen before you were seen. I don't like to show people projects I'm working on until they're all done. I feel really uncomfortable doing my Q to Q sermon run through on Thursdays because it's not the finalized product yet. It's close, but it's not there. I don't want people to see worship stuff I'm working on until after it's done, because I don't want them to see all of the failures that it took to get to that polished product or like that finished thing on the end, because you're going to evaluate me based off of whatever that complete thing is.
Yeah.
I want you to judge me based off of what you see. But Jesus works the other way around. He's like, no, I knew all of that junk was going to happen in your life, and I knew what your choices were going to be. I chose you before you could show me a polished version of yourself. And so I think there was a lot of wisdom in that comment that Greg had in summarizing the personhood of Esther, that she was chosen before she was seen, but for us as well. And that's what I actually was really encouraged by. Whatever people on the other side of this microphone think about Pokemon, it was a really good move to say, hey, if you'd like one Pokemon card, tell your campus director I was chosen before I was seen. And I started the day with 240 Pokemon cards at our 3 services, and I ended the day with only about 40 cards left.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. But that meant that every single little kid, like I had 3-year-olds where their parents were teaching them how to say I was chosen before I was seen. Say that so they could get a Pokemon card. But now that's going to be something hopefully that they'll remember as time goes on. Yeah. I had grandmas and grandpas that were saying this and reminding themselves about who they are in Christ so they could get a Pokemon card to give to their grandkid or something like that. So I liked that incorporation all throughout.
Yeah. So there is also this idea of being not, God doesn't just call the awesome qualified people, but he qualifies those whom he calls, which is Esther's story as well. And do either of you have a personal story of how God did that to you?
I have a story about Chad.
Oh, all nice. I like it.
Oh, no.
So, Chad started here a year ago, and he started serving the Lord with student ministry, and he did a wonderful job, but he wasn't called yet.
Right.
The Lord was qualifying him and qualifying him and qualifying him, and now he's called. But what I mean, that's the external view, right? Mm-hmm. That like he got better and better and better, and now we called him. It's actually the opposite. God put a calling on his life and began working on him and purifying him and removing dross from his life. And he's not perfect yet. He's close. We've almost got him to the point where he's
nice
chipped
try.
away. But that's what I actually appreciate about the way that the Lord worked. What happened on stage, in front of everybody in our church, as we said, he is now officially called to be here. Man, that was just an external affirmation of the calling that the Lord put on his life a long time ago. Yeah. And he called him before he passed his interview, and he put this calling on his life before he proved competency and, like Old Testament, New Testament, and doctrine. He put this calling on his life well before, all of the other aspects were proven.
Yeah.
But he's also done a good job of proving all of those aspects. So.
That's sweet. Do you want to explain Seth's, or do you want to talk more about your own?
I'll kind of share a story of kind of not both, but an external story of I'm imagining a sculptor with a cube of granite, and the sculptor knows what the granite will become. But I bet if the granite could be personified, it would be like, I'm just a cube. What am I going to become? And as you take the big corners off and you get the big chisel to get the big chunks out, it slowly becomes more of what was initially intended. And we'll never quite get to be perfect, as Seth tried to say that I am, which I promise you I'm not.
That's why I laugh, because I know you're not, and you know that I know that.
Yeah. Amen. God's always working on us. And we're never, let the goal not be perfection. Let the goal not to be that polished artist piece of granite finalized, but let the goal to be get the chunks out of your life. Let the goal to be striving to be what the sculptor's sculpting you to become, not based off my own effort or not based off the goal of being perfect, but the goal of letting Jesus do his work on me.
I mean, that's very biblical too, because like the same conversation is had about the potter and the clay. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I remember right, Michelangelo has the same thing to say about the cube. Marble, I think, is what he uses as the example. But there's also a Skit Guys video, if you remember the Skit Guys, where they actually talk about the chisel, I think is what they call it, or something like that. And it's, removing aspects away so that you are in that becoming of a disciple of Jesus.
Yeah. No, I did a messaging college at our student worship night, and I had my pottery professor come on stage with me, and he made a pot as I was giving the message. Super cool. Hope I get to do that again sometime. And I have one of the pots that he made in my office, so come by and see it sometime. But he made it, and he finished it in the perfect time. And I asked the crowd, like, "Hey, what is this?" And they guessed. They said, it's going to be a bowl for ramen. It's going to be this other thing. And they had all these guesses. And then he said, well, I actually wanted it to be a baptistry. I said, okay. So what he just said deemed all of your guesses invalid. They mean nothing now. Because what the potters intended it to be, that's what it's going to become. God has called and will equip all of us to what he's called us to. So let the potter work.
Mm-hmm. So, Greg connected the story of adoption. King of Kings, we have a connection with Hope Chest and city of Los Amates, Guatemala, where we have child adoptions. And these kids, most of them have a mom or a dad, and some of them even have both. But we're still adopting them to help provide physical and spiritual for all these awesome kids in Los Amates, Guatemala. And so if you have not... I would love for each listener to prayerfully consider sponsoring a child. You can go online and you can read a little bit about each, look at their faces and see what they aspire to be when they grow up, and help support them physically, spiritually. Hope Chest does a great job connecting those kids to Jesus, and we send missions to the same town over and over again, so we get to know them as well, which is wonderful. But I wonder, final thoughts today, your thoughts on not just the Hope Chest, but your thoughts on adoption through Christ.
I mean, I'll end it how I started it. We are orphans, and Christ deemed us family, and now we get to walk in that as if we've always been family with him, and knowing that he loves us so much that he has something in plan for our lives and has a purpose to be called for us.
I completely agree. The scriptures say that the Lord placed eternity in their hearts, and it's in mission. It's often talked about, like, what that means is that every culture has some story, has some way to have a mission person speak the gospel into that. Into any culture. There's something there. But that's why I think adoption stories resonate so well with us. That's why that unforeseen hero story, coming out of nothing, resonates so strongly with so many people. And I think that's because ever since we got kicked out of Eden, we've always wanted to go home. And I think, like, we get a semblance of what home actually feels like from our earthly family if you get a good experience. But I still think that there's a part of us that always wants to go home. And to be told that, like, look, let's just call the thing what it is. You're an orphan. You don't have a home here, but to be able to say that, like, there is a part of this story because of the sacrifice of Jesus where you are adopted now and you have a home. And not only are you loved and adopted now, and that's proclaimed over you, he even tells his disciples and his followers he's going to go prepare a place for you. He's preparing a home for you. And I think that that's part of the longing that creation has, is it yearns to be home and it yearns to be full in Christ.
Right. Well, I mean, either way, if someone doesn't have a family like Esther, then it's pretty easy to imagine what you could have. And if you did have a great home life and did have a great family, I think it's also pretty easy to say, imagine if you didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and whether it's great or challenging here, it's imperfect.
Yeah.
And it's messy.
Right.
And God is with us, but until we see him face to face in heaven, it'll be painful.
Yeah.
A great hymn, the first verse of I'm But a Stranger Here says this: I'm but a stranger here, heaven is my home. Earth is a desert drear, heaven is my home. Danger and sorrow stand round me on every hand. Heaven is my fatherland, heaven is my home. And I think that perspective helps us even while we are here. It helps us to keep going amidst the danger, amidst the challenge. And we're claimed by God.
Amen.
And it helps us keep going beyond Sunday.
Beyond Sunday, on to Monday, Tuesday, and forward. And that's all we have for today on Beyond Sunday, taking God's word to the masses, I think is the tagline. All right. Get well soon, Dina. Bye.